Hi, everybody. Welcome to Agency Unfiltered. I'm your host, Kevin Dunn, and Agency Unfiltered is a bi-weekly web series and podcast that interviews agency owners from around the world about agency operations, growth, and scale. Episodes can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and you can find our videos and full transcripts on agencyunfiltered.com. In this episode, we're in St. Paul, Minnesota, to talk to Trish Lessard, CEO of Media Junction. We talk about website projects, both building net new and migrating between CMS providers. Trish shares her process and her approach for effectively project managing client websites, and maybe most importantly, how to keep those projects delivered on time, under budget, and kept within scope. Agency Unfiltered, coming at you. Well, hello, Trish. Welcome to Agency Unfiltered. Welcome to Agency Unfiltered, but thank you for having me in the Media Junction offices today.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming out to Minneapolis.
Yeah, the spirit of Minbound is what we were talking about.
Right?
Yeah. So today, let's talk about something that Media Junction has plenty of experience with, as you'll be able to attest to, but CMS, migrations, website builds, website implementation, hot topic right now, rightfully so. And it sounds like you guys have a real strong approach in which you keep those projects on time, within scope, on budget. And so let's see if we can dig into that and find some helpful takeaways for the audience at home. How's that sound?
That sounds perfect.
So maybe before we get into my line of questioning, why don't you just give us a quick background as to Media Junction's history with websites, site builds, what that practice looks like today for you guys.
Sure. So we started out in 1997, and we started as a web design company. So as we've evolved, we started with kind of smaller local businesses. That was kind of the passion behind it. The vision was everybody someday is going to have a website. So, a lot of people probably watching this were probably born.
Part of that, yeah, right.
Born right around this time. Yeah. So, but there was a time where you had to convince people that they needed a website, and so, as years have evolved, we've really honed in on the user experience and building websites for the end user versus, brochure websites. Mm-hmm. And so we became a HubSpot partner in 2011 and started working with, I think they're old templates. I can't even remember the name of them, but there were orange boxes everywhere. So, so we started with HubSpot and the rest is kind of history, I guess.
How many websites would you guess your team builds on a year-to-year basis? Like what sort of volume are we thinking?
Yeah, so it's usually 50 to 60
Yeah, it's a lot.
Builds. Yeah.
And so maybe the best place to start, if we're talking about the process, let's start at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. So do you find that most of the folks that need a website come to you? Are you trying to scope out as a lot of outreach in the sales process? What does the scoping look like for you guys in the sales process?
So, usually people come to us.
Okay.
And they have, maybe vetted 2 or 3 other partners. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of times they'll come to us with a list of the things that they think they need.
Yeah.
And so we really try to peel that back and say, let's start, from scratch. Okay, what do you really need your website to do? And we have that conversation. A lot of them are like, well, we just need a redesign. So the customers come to us with, I think I know, but they don't really know.
How do you do the soft nudge on the things on the list that you don't think they need?
So, for us, it's just, we're open and we're honest mm-hmm. with them about things. We try to have candid conversations. We try to just be, treat people exactly the way that we'd want to be treated. Sure. So, obviously a little bit of education. Mm-hmm. So talking through it, letting them know that really nowadays it's not even really about templates because everybody's kind of stuck in that template, sure. Mentality and, well, can I get, 50 templates of this or whatever? And we're like, no, we kind of do flexible modules and kind of, so there's a lot of education that goes into it. And we do demos. So the best way is to show and tell.
Yep.
And so we open up, we have our own framework. that we've developed for ourselves that just helps with our efficiency. And so we open that up and give them a demo of the back end, and we show them, the different things.
This is exactly what it'll look like in motion. What other information? So you have the list of their requests. You kind of comparatively look at it based on what you think they'll need. You peel back, and so you kind of build that wish list, so to speak. What other information or what else do you need to pull from the client and able to build the right proposal, kind of scope? What other information do you tend to collect at this stage?
So, I mean, typically it's goals. You always want to start with goals. Like, why are you going through a redesign? What does the current landscape look like? A lot of the people that are coming to us, they're just not hitting their goals. They're just not getting the leads. They're not, people aren't finding things aren't organized properly.
Are the goals typically lead based, or is it all the way down to number of sales, revenue?
Sometimes, I mean, and the quality of the leads are, and the type of leads are very different. So sometimes we'll have, construction companies that come to us and they'll say, we're having a hard time finding laborers, or, and so our sole purpose is just recruitment.
That's fair. Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Once we have the information we need, all right, now I would imagine that, there's probably more steps, so I don't want to simplify the process, but you have to give them the scope of work. Like, this is what we think it's going to look like. This is how long it'll take. So how do you, is it art or science for threading the needle into like how long a web project will be, or how does that forecasting look like for timelines?
For us, generally we know that, there's about 200 to 250 hours that are going to go into a website, just bare bones, when you're going to do it right, between strategy, design, development, and implementation. So for us, we start with a, kind of like a flat rate, and then we kind of evolve it from there. And so it's usually on a per page basis, or, if there's individual projects in there, so if there's like a calculator, or there's things like that. And
some of the unique aspects for that individual.
Right. We use a tool, I think it's like Sitemap XML or something, where we go in and we just crawl the site, look at the pages. If they'll allow us into Google Analytics, we kind of look at how many pages over the course of a year. And so anything that hasn't been visited 100 times or more, we usually just jump off the list, and it's like, okay, we could probably combine, these 6 pages into one page, and so, I think the biggest mistake is like, oh, you have 50 pages, you need 50 pages. I mean, we've taken a 4,000 page website and condensed it down to 1,000 pages.
So pages, you need to know it, but it's not going to always be a one-to-one mapping of how big this new site will be.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
250 hours, I think you just mentioned. So a substantial amount of time. I would imagine within that time, there's a handful of touch points, and I'm sure the client doesn't wait. They're not patiently waiting over here. There's probably a plenty of touch points and moments where you have to give them updates. What does that look like? What's kind of the rule of thumb for the cadence or the frequency of touch points with a client?
We've gotten it to the point where it's pretty simplified. When you think of like strategy is 25%, design is 25%, development 25%, and then implementation, launch, and PM is the other 25%. So that's how we break it down for people. But yeah, I think for us it's discovery is usually, started by somebody on the team that specializes in that. We do a lot of surveys with the customers. We do a kickoff stakeholder meeting, and typically we ask that, for the strategy session, that we have the leadership team from the company on there to ask them,
Is that ever hard to get that team
No.
on there? They're usually pretty open to that.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of even, CEOs or, VPs of sales, this is their tool. They're invested in it.
Should be their number one sales rep, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So they treat it as, this is an important meeting.
Cool.
And so we ask, a lot of questions, and we listen, and so what we're looking for is, what does this website need to look like today, and what does it need to look like in a year to 2 years? So if they have new products coming, things like that, we're anticipating that, we're building that in. So then, they're not
and
coming
that
back
those 2
to
years
us.
is not a whole new redesign for them,
Exactly,
right?
exactly, because it should be fluid, it should be constantly evolving and growing, so.
Have you ever had a client come in, maybe like the second half, like so you've planned the strategy, you're in the process of building this website, and like a request comes in that totally is a curveball or a change of what they wanted, whether it's good or bad. And so I would imagine that if you're going to quote this time in this price, you want to keep it, again, within that budget, within that scope. But how do you handle requests that come in at the 11th hour, whether or not they might be beneficial for the website?
So usually, it starts with a conversation. How important is it for launch?
Sure.
Is it worth, is it going to impact anything else that we've done? Mm-hmm. So once we can kind of get past that and we understand, is it the same team? What does our bandwidth look like? Can we take it on? Typically we like to accommodate requests. Mm-hmm. You can kind of anticipate that, there's always going to be changes at the last minute, but for us, it's really important that the client has somebody that is accountable to all of the approvals through the process.
That's right.
And so I would just say that in each scenario, we try to be empathetic.
Yeah.
Like, how important is this? Would this be something that should stop what we're doing right now? And so we kind of just handle it that way. And a lot of times the clients are pretty open to, they know that this is a last minute request.
Yeah. So if it's a polite nudge or a, hey, let's put that in the parking lot, they're usually pretty open to that feedback at that point.
Yeah. Especially if we're doing like a growth-driven design model, it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's put that on the backlog.
Right, so that sort of framework just allows for that
Exactly, because they're already in that, mind frame. But if it's something that was missed, in the scoping or missed by, by somebody along the way, then it's priorities.
There's two different between, we missed something that is truly vital in the scoping phase versus what's the shiny object syndrome or whatever.
Exactly.
Two completely different things.
Exactly.
Right? How does the process change if somebody's doing a redesign on the same CMS or the CMS that they're already on versus a migration from one platform to another? I would assume one's inherently more complicated. So how do you guys handle that?
It can be. Typically, obviously it's DNS that you're really, at the end of the day, if you're flipping the switch, if it's HubSpot to HubSpot, game over. That's,
sure.
You can launch with under an hour. Mm-hmm. But we've had launches that, involve huge IT teams, because they have different channels or, to go through to be able to get approvals, and their time to lives are set like ridiculous. They have it's just it could be days. It could be days for some of these big companies, and so a lot of times what we'll try to do is we'll anticipate that, and have that conversation a couple weeks before launch. We really like to talk about it earlier than that.
Well, sure.
But a couple weeks before launch, we'll have a pre-launch meeting. Grab all the people in the room, figure out what time, is the ideal time.
This is the date, let's set up for it,
So a lot of our launches happen super early in the morning.
I was going to actually ask when you guys, some folks like middle of the night, but you first thing in the morning.
It's first thing in the morning, and we used to be really late at night when we were just starting out, because we thought okay, that's not going to impact things. But you know what? We went home.
True.
You know what I mean?
We need to be here. Yeah, we need to triage.
Be here.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
So we block out, a half a day.
That's great. Yeah.
For the entire team. Once on the launch, you're available. If there's anything that happens, we're just triaging it. Immediately. So.
That's great. For migration specifically, I feel like the one question that always comes up is what's the SEO impact? Do you guys have a stance on what sort of is there a major impact to traffic? Have you guys found the right way to do the migration as to kind of mitigate that concern? What's your guys' stance on it?
I don't know. I think if you do the planning and you here have your 301s in place and you have all of that, it should be fine. Unless you're just botching it in the SEO. If they're killing it in SEO, it's let's look at what is on the page. Let's not change a lot of things. But we really haven't seen that.
If anything, it should be, because you're do all the right preparation, the 301s to your point. If anything, it should be a boost to the SEO, right? Versus
a lot of times
you're doing it the right way.
Yeah, because a lot of times, what we're doing is we're taking blog from a subdomain and we're bringing it up to the main, so people are seeing the impact and traffic and that happening right away.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Once the website goes live, everything's obviously been wildly successful. No major issues to triage, SEO jump in all the right ways. What does the engagement with that client look like once the website's up? Do you guys have a model for ongoing support? Does it tend to lead into recurring services? What does that tend to look like once the site's up?
Yeah, so for us, we build websites for BOFU usually.
Yeah.
It depends on how knowledgeable and how long they've been on HubSpot. If they have the offers, that they have everything kind of in place. For us, it'll be an SLA, so a service level agreement. Yep. It's whenever they have updates that come to us. Some of our clients are strategy only, so we're looking at the data, we're giving them, advice, and then others are GDD, where it's like you just jump right into, that backlog, or you have, kind of a plan.
Yeah, some of the optimization opportunities and the experiments you want to run. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. What does is there a heavy training component, because you're solving, well, obviously for the users themselves, but the front end of the actual CMS, is there a training component to make sure that your clients' teams know how to make small time updates, or any edits, drag and drop, something like that?
Yeah, so in terms of for our clients, we built our framework to be pretty user-friendly to anyone.
Cool.
So we like to say that within an hour and a half of a Zoom meeting, anybody can pretty much make updates.
So it's not a time-intensive workshop from you guys to get folks ramped up.
No. And the other thing is that, when we do that training, we provide them with a recording of the training so they can go back. Mm-hmm. So it might be like cognitive overload for them. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh yeah.
The old drink from the fire hose,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, here's an alt tag, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm a secretary. I don't really know, how to do what an alt tag is, but they can reference it back and that. So for our clients, typically, we can hand off a website, and it's pretty easy for them to be able to manage. And our internal team, we like to have people start in the company as like a support coordinator and kind of take them through the whole company. And then work them into implementation. So everybody on our team knows our own framework.
Yeah, cool.
So it's, something that, I can jump in and make updates.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it.
To sites. Anybody can. So it doesn't matter. So if it's, we need all hands on deck, we've got a whole team.
All hands are ready to be on deck. Yeah,
exactly,
that's awesome.
Exactly.
Has maybe like one or two questions up for you, but has a website build or a migration or anything ever gone wrong? And then maybe there's one example, I don't know, but and then what was the lesson learned, right? The idea is that, is there something that went wrong that you learned how to do something a different way that maybe other folks can potentially avoid that to happening to them?
So I don't know that you're gonna love this, but we have a retrospective meeting after every single website. And so for us, something goes wrong in every single build.
Well, I think that's fair to say. Yeah, 100%.
So, some of the horror stories, where, in the early days with HubSpot, it was the whole, non-WWWs, and people were live and not able to get to their websites. But obviously we've learned the workaround on that, but gosh, not that I can really.
There's no major horror stories. That's a good problem to have, to not be able to think of one.
Yeah, it would have to be, years and years ago.
Yeah.
Because I think that we've gotten to the point where, we try to anticipate that in every build, that there's, what can't go wrong will go wrong.
The flex time for triage, you bake it in.
You do, and you never know, and so I can't really think of anything that's just like a...
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Final question then for you. Tend to ask this to wrap up every episode. What's the weirdest part of agency life?
That's a good question. I would say the weirdest part is people hire you and then they tell you what to do. It's just like,
Yeah, I guess
I
you're
mean,
right.
think about like the last time you went to the dentist. Would you ever tell your dentist like how to do their job?
Yeah, right.
That's the weirdest thing.
Yeah,
Like,
no, do it this way, right? Yeah, you don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And
You're
it's
like, I
like-
leave it up to the experts in my mouth.
it's like all of a sudden it's like IT guys turn into designers like
Yeah.
overnight. It's like
Right.
you're telling me that this color, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
or whatever.
right.
So
Yeah.
I would say that that's like probably one of the weirdest.
It's a good point. I hadn't
Things
thought of it
about-
that way, but I would
Yeah.
assume that a lot of, if there's agencies listening and they probably, they feel that way too.
Yeah.
Well, that is it for me. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks so
All
much.
right. Thank you.
Yeah, this has been Agency Unfiltered. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Agency Unfiltered. If you like what you saw, heard, or read, make sure to subscribe to our playlist on YouTube, our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or our newsletter on agencyunfiltered.com. Alongside episode launch notifications, the newsletter also comes with a ton of other helpful, strategically curated agency content from yours truly. And if you want to keep the conversation going or provide a counterpoint to this episode's discussion, tweet me at Kevin_Dunn. I'll see you again in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, keep it unfiltered and let's all grow.